I always believed in small moments: a morning coffee, a note slipped under the door, a hint of color in a gray day. I never expected dread to come in a pastel pink envelope. I'm Lisa Carter, and that day began like any other. The envelope arrived with the post, its glossy surface out of place among mundane bills and flyers. I held it lightly, turning it over. Its color was soft, almost inviting, and the handwriting inside was delicate. A smile teased my lips as I unraveled the paper. The note read, "Roses are red, violets are blue. Open the door for something for you." It seemed a playful taunt, a quirky joke from someone who knew me. I taped the note to the fridge. A small flame of amusement warmed me. Then a sound, a slow, scraping shuffle from upstairs, broke the pleasant monotony. I paused. Was it the afternoon breeze? My heart did a quiet flip. I ascended slowly, each step on the creaking stairs hammering in a sort of dread I couldn't quite place. The attic hatch, usually secured and hidden, now lay ominously open. A faint, sour stench of decay brushed past me. My instincts screamed to leave, but curiosity kept me rooted. I flicked the light switch near the top, the beam cutting through darkness and revealing nothing more than dusty beams and forgotten boxes. Yet behind me a slight rustle made me freeze. I turned. In the doorway a masked figure stood, its face hidden behind a painted facade of indifference. It didn't move, only watched me with unsettling stillness. And then, in a rush of seconds that blurred, the figure lunged. I remember nothing after the cold metal pressed against my skin, the taste of iron in my mouth, nor the terrified scramble to escape. The last thing, before darkness swallowed me, was a soft, almost childish rhyme whispered in my ear, a promise coded in sinister affection. Later, in clinical detachment, the crime scene was methodically documented. In the modern, sterile corridors of Crestwood County's investigation unit, forensics cataloged every piece of evidence. Lisa Carter's bedroom was transformed into a tableau of eerily choreographed violence. Her body lay posed on the bed. Her hands were clasped tenderly over her heart, as if trying to keep it beating on its own. A second pink envelope was placed with deliberate precision, pinned to her chest with a surgical needle. Above it, freshly made scrawl read, "Be mine forever, your love in death, I sever." To the untrained eye, it was a grotesque sight, but to trained detectives, it was a method, a signature. The crime was not a spur-of-the-moment frenzy, but a ritual, each step calculated and laced with a dark poetry. On the night of the murder, the attic door had been left ajar, a quiet testament to opportunities exploited in silence. The lingering odor of decay, now catalogued as a chemical marker, hinted at the convergence of passive neglect and deliberate malice. Investigators noted the room's disordered symmetry, each object placed just as personal memories in a final tableau. The polished surface of the envelope, the delicate rhyme, it all spoke of someone who saw the act as an offering, a twisted kind of devotion. The town's whispers grew like wild vines, entangling suspicions and guilt. Ethan, Lisa's boyfriend, was pressed under heavy scrutiny. His hesitations, his unkempt trail of unanswered questions, and the affinity for late-night walks near the crime scene pointed toward him. Yet subtle inconsistencies remained. His hands shook as he recounted his whereabouts. His eyes darted away whenever the pink souvenir was mentioned. But when pressed with evidence, he only offered fractured alibis. It was then that the cameras caught a fleeting image, a hooded figure amidst the crowd at the memorial vigil. This person's presence was like a dark punctuation mark at the end of a haunting sentence, a final piece that eluded capture while insinuating a larger, unfathomable puzzle. Was this shadow a mere echo of the murderer, a copycat, or someone tangled in the killer's perverse affection? The theory spun through minds like an unbalanced record. Back in my recollection, a memory now fading into a spectral haze, I recall the misleading calmness before every storm. I had laughed at the quirky poem, unaware of how it concealed the promise of my final hour. The attic door's ajar stance, which I assumed was an innocent oversight, was a harbinger. Each detail of that day now consumes piecemeal analysis. A note, a smell, the haunting stillness of a figure draped in secrets. In the lab, experts measured blood spatter patterns, mapping the last moments of a person whose life had been sold for a snatch of twisted poetry. The red ink that filled the verses was unmistakably hers, a grotesque mimicry of her own vitality. Analysis revealed that the handwriting, while delicate, was forced, each letter shaped in precision, evoking the unsettling charm of an artist committed to a macabre performance. Cameras in the neighborhood recorded fragments of the day. a blurred figure lurking beneath the fractured light of a street lamp, a masked smile caught in a reflection at a shuttered window. These images lent a chilling modern aura to the incident. It wasn't an isolated horror born from old ghost tales, but rather something constructed in real time, piece by piece in a digital age that collected our deepest secrets in metadata. The investigators, deliberately logical in their approach, dissected each clue. They noted the juxtaposition: love and violence, intimacy, and cold detachment. The murderer, whoever they were, orchestrated every element to evoke rapture and terror. The pink envelope, so innocent in appearance, camouflaged lethal intent. A twist of fate had turned sentiment into a harbinger of ruin. Forensic reports painted the scene in stark contrast: a young life unspooled in a private space, contorted into a stage for grotesque theatrics. The victim, beloved as she was in the town's memory, became a silent testament to a maniac's ritualistic passion. The calculus of each movement, the choreography of cruelty, were captured in a series of clinical observations that left little room for sentiment. In the retrospective silence of police logs and digital evidence, the picture remained incomplete. Lisa's voice, the one that should have recounted laughter and mundane dreams, was frozen forever in a tragic verse, a rhyme meant for a twisted Valentine's flourish. Yet, beneath the ink and the blood, something deeper lingered. A trace of personal history, a crack in the facade of a killer obsessed with sentimentality, whispered of connections yet unrevealed. The investigation hinted that the pattern was deliberate, insidious. Every piece, a pink envelope, an unlocked hatch, a cryptic rhyme, was a prelude to the next unwritten tragedy. And as the crowd at memorial services danced like shadows under a reluctant autumn sun, a hooded figure lingered at the periphery. Their gaze was unreadable, a silent promise caught between forgiveness and forewarning. I, Lisa, am now nothing more than a memory. Yet the soft echo of that final rhyme, rhythmically playful against the backdrop of pervasive horror, haunts the quiet corridors of my former home. The world sees only a detailized scene of blood and plastic tokens of love. Back then, each heartbeat sang its own fierce melody. Now, in stark contrast, the faded remnants of my laughter are cataloged with the objectivity of evidence. And so the story remains unfinished. Underneath the meticulous coldness of recorded facts is a simmering question. Is the shadow in the crowd the true orchestrator of these macabre tokens of devotion, or simply another lost soul ensnared by the allure of a love gone terribly, undeniably wrong? The open attic door, the unintended path left ajar, continuously invites us to ponder whether love's darkest expressions mark merely a tragic accident or the beginning of a far larger whispered saga. In the waning light of that fateful Valentine's Day, every element, the playful pink envelope, the unexpected open hatch, the menacing poem in blood, coalesced to form a mirror reflecting our hidden fears, that something so benign could, in a heartbeat, transform into relentless, cold horror.